Hey guys, this is Max from mixelite.com, and in this video, from start to finish, we'll go from this to this. Alright, so first of all, let's color code everything, okay? So here are our drums. I like to make them red, and you can also auto-name clips. Let's do it with everything. And for now, we'll focus only on instrumental. That's why I'll take the vocals down, mute them, and lock them. Now, depending how you were producing, it would be nice to have all of those colors assigned also to the inserts, right? So mark all of our drums, go here and just choose the same one we have in playlist. And also to make it tidy, we can group them. So let's group them drums. So we have the drums over here, and here we'll basically have all of our other instruments, which I know that are just our instruments. So it can be like that. Same we can do with our vocals that we have in the channel rack. I'll just do it right now. And now we can double click the select and hit Ctrl and L, so it's linked in our mixer just like that. Now I'd like to solo just the drums inside of the mixer, right? So I could do that like this in the playlist, but it's always good to create a bass channel, which basically contain all of your same type of elements in one bus. So depending on how many types of instruments you have, you would have that many buses. So I just hold Shift and scroll up on an empty insert and put it at the end of my drums. And now select all of them and Control left click on the empty insert. That will create a bus that we can now name drum bus. And I like to make it a little bit more saturated, so I know that this is our drum bus. Same thing we can do with our instruments. So we put them at the end. We also have some vocal amis that actually plays an instrument role, and we again assign them to our instrument bus. Same you can do with your vocals. Also here we have our 808, and our 808 is blue. So let's change that quickly. We can click to change color, accept, and hit F2 on your keyboard and F3 on your keyboard, and it will copy the color. And we of course don't want it to go to our drum bus, right? So now we've colored everything and assigned. I usually would start with leveling everything overall. So I would just take a listen to everything and see what's really obvious that needs to be usually just taken down, right? So the vocal arm is over here. Also the crush can go down definitely. After rough leveling like that, let's go into individual drums leveling. We have an upcoming video on exactly how to level, so make sure to check this out after this video. He'll be just going start to finish. So our kick should be the most prominent, right? Then we have some open hat. The open hats are a little bit too loud. Overall, by default, when you have all of your drums untouched, they all will be basically normalized, right? So for trap, usually the drums will sound pretty properly leveled out of the box, but I usually find myself, taking down open hats and percussion elements, for example, like we have here. And we have this huge percussion hit. We have a few layers of clap, so the way you choose the layers is also quite important, because as you can hear, this one is, generic. This one is high focused and wide, right? So it actually plays really well with the last layer, which is mid-focused and has more body to it. And this one is just off perk, basically, right? So it's not actually a clap. That's why for kind of percussion and stuff like this, we can basically pan them a little bit. So this is also a percussion element, basically. This open hat here and this shaker as well. So this open hat also goes down. This main clap we can definitely EQ to cut out some of the body, since we already have a layer for that. And we could perhaps boost some of the highs to make it a little bit more, you know, high focus, because I like it that way. Right, so we clean it up a little bit, since we also have a few different layers. And now, to spice up your claps a little bit as well, you could pre-delay some of the layers. For example, pre-delay the main clap. It works really nice for hip hop, for example. In that case, we rather want to have this cut through the mix. That's why I leave it. And now, to make it a bit more glued together, the drums overall, I like to add some distortion. I usually would go for the capitator in something like at about 3 drive, or up until I hear the kick go really, really wild, right? As you can hear. It goes really wild on the distortion. That's why I maybe keep it that way. You could definitely try out with Fruity Fast distortion, or also this saturation knob from Softtube, which is a free distortion. Or some people even use soft clipping, right? It usually depends a lot whether you're producing with a soft clipper, for example, on your master. You definitely never want to have any limiting on your master. You do soft clipping by turning down the saturation knob a little bit and bringing up the ceiling so it doesn't affect it, right? It would work basically pretty similar. We'll do that, but a little bit later. Now let's keep the master empty and just turn on some glue, basically, right? Some people also like to, you know, go with some glue compressors. For example, the glue from Cytomic is one of the more popular choices. You just basically make it work a few dBs and turn on the makeup gain. And I would go with instant attack settings. We also have a full video about drum mixing. Instead of saturation or glue compression, you could also try parallel compression on your drum bus, where you take the threshold all the way down, increase the ratio all the way up, and gain all the way up. And well, with the attack, you could go up or down. Let's go down first and I'll show you. Then we basically squashed the drums a lot and started to increase the gain. Also, what people do with compressors usually is just do very similar settings, but increase the attack with the threshold a little bit lower, of course, and the release a little bit lower as well to avoid any artifacts. And now if you take down the mix, it will work quite similar to something like transient processor. Of course, FL also has one built in, and I can't say I usually do this or that. It depends on the track and the style and how much time, for example, you have, right? And depends, of course, if you want to add some harmonics through drums, right? In that case, saturation like this will not only glue everything together, will bring up the low sound, but also like nicely harmonize everything together. And the problem I see is that the kick lost its punch. And now if you watched our video about dynamic saturation, you could use something like we've done there, where we basically had a dynamic saturator, right? This is how it sounds. Right, in small amounts and also lowering the overall output. You can watch the whole video how it works, but it would work in a way where you just basically preserve the dynamics. Also, different plugins have it built in. The capitator doesn't, but in that case, if, for example, just kick sounds a little bit too squashed and doesn't cut through the mix with the saturation on, what I would do is usually just apply some transient master basically on the kick drum. Right, so it already cuts through very, very nicely. There's a ton of free ones that you can definitely use. And also what I hear now is that our open hats, they kind of make the kick feel a little bit weak. That's why I would like to sidechain the kick to the hats. This is not something usual, but I'll show you that will work really nicely. So let's group all of our open hats and put them into open hats bass. And now the bass, of course, goes into the drum bass, but the hats go into the open hat bass. So we go and apply some sidechain compression with Fruity limiter. We go and sidechain the kick to our open hat bass. And now in the limiter, choose the sidechain from kick, right? Ratio all the way up. The release goes also way down. So now inside the overall drum bass, it makes the kick itself hit a little bit harder. You could also put your main hat to this bass. Let's see what happens. It kind of makes the kick hide also the hat. Something that we'll definitely do with different elements, maybe not right now. What I love to do, especially when I apply some saturation that brings out the clatter, right, dirtiness from the quiet sounds, we actually need something down in the bottom, right? And when you use sounds like this is so dry, there's nothing underneath, right? So our saturation will not have anything to pick up. That's why I like to add very, very slight room reverb. You can choose Fruity reverb and put the size all the way up and the shortest decay possible. And very, very low wet. And also we low cut it to about 1 to 2 kHz to not make it too dirty. Right? It picks it up a lot. The caviar also creates a ton of these lower harmonics just from this hat only. So yeah, you could clean it up. It's not necessary. But nobody is going to be listening to your hat by itself. In the whole mix, also, I like Valhalla Room in 5%, let's say, and very, very short decay. I would also pan one of the hats if you haven't already when producing. Something like this. Not too much to not overwhelm the mix, but works pretty nice. Let's put the 808 into it. You cannot really hear it, right? With this 808, I would like to make it a little bit longer and basically have a little bit less of the attack. For that, I like to limit the bass. Right, so we make it sound longer and also it will hit harder. Now, definitely we want some sidechaining from the kick drum. So we sidechain the kick to our 808. And now depending on the style of your 808, we could go with standard sidechain where you just sidechain with compressor with the ratio all the way up. But it totally destroys the 808, right? Much better way would be if we could just take down the low frequencies from the 808. Right? So when the kick hits, we just take down the frequencies that both kick and 808 have. In FL, you can just apply peak controller and put the bass to 50% and volume down a little bit to 100%. And now in your 808, take this low end shelf and link to controller and search for the peak controller on our kick, right? And we just accept. Now we can play with the volume. And now a pro tip here to make sure it works correctly is applying on your master some kind of oscilloscope like this one or LFO tool or any other one and just cut out all the high end. So this is the moment where our kick and 808 clashes basically. So we could play around with that by, you know, when we make it too long, it kind of makes this deep. If we don't apply it at all, it makes this huge spike in volume, right? As you can see, if we put it to minus 100%, it is kind of perfect, right? So with this kind of oscilloscope, you could for sure say whether you're clashing or not. If you have something like Soothe, you can apply it on your 808, put it in sidechain and choose the sidechain from the processing over here and target just the low end over here. And play with the sharpness. And this is how it looks with the EQ. Soothe again. Depends what sounds better to you. This one with parametric EQ sounds pretty nice. Cool. Now they don't clash in the low end. I'd like the 808 to have some noise to it, and I love to do that with Patcher. And there's this noise unit preset. We put the frequency up. Let's make it work high up. Sounds pretty nice. And now secret tip is to distort it afterwards with the noise. All right, sounds pretty nice. Let's get into some instruments. All right, so we definitely don't need that many mixer inserts, okay? Most of those are actually layers. You'll know that because you will be mixing your track, but let's hear. So this is our bell. This will be our layer to it. So let's put them into one track and reset this one. Take it out. Also, let's reset the track's routing so we don't have any issues with side chaining. Then this over here. Okay, those four are definitely one layer. So one thing you could do is, of course, take another insert and route all of those guys into one insert. And then, of course, you'll have more control over each instrument, right? This is how you can do it. For sake of this tutorial, I'll just put all of those guys into one mixer track. Let's say it will be 18. Okay, so we have this one and then those three guys. So that will be 19, and those we can reset and get rid of. And now this vocal here is kind of a separate layer, right? So it looks like that. First of all, I would definitely like to just sidechain the kick to the melody. So we'll take our kick and left click it to our instrument bus, okay? And take it down. Now, so we just apply a limiter, go to compressor, choose the kick from the sidechain ratio all the way up, and just search for a good balance. This crash here, let's route it only to our instrument bus because this will be basically our sidechain bus, right? All of your crashes also sometimes should be at least a little bit sidechain to the kick to make your drums feel much harder. Don't go lower than 100 milliseconds on the compressor release time to avoid any artifacts. And, you know, we don't want to overdo it. Depends on how hard hitting you want your track to be, right? Much better. Now let's do something with the mid layer of our melody. Let's make this one dirty and distorted and kind of taking all of the meat of our track, which will be our mid-range, right? So let's first off apply some EQ and get rid of all the unnecessary frequencies, right? As you can hear, we have a ton of low end material over here. And we can try later how it will sound with more or less of it. For now, let's do it like this. So it's quite clear. Then before that, actually, to distort it and add more harmonic content to it, before the EQ, let's apply some distortion. I really like the capulator. I could go with any stock saturation, but I really think it will fit here. Let's go hard up until we don't actually hear some resonances. So this time about 4. And with the EQ, right, it adds a ton of this dirtiness. We have still some kind of resonances, so let's hear if we could maybe, one by one, level the instruments a little bit. Okay, this piano over here, it actually sounds pretty cool. This chord brass can go down definitely. And this one, right, sounds a little bit better balanced. So let's just make the piano a lot louder, since it kind of works as the main layer in this layer group. This area over here is really nice, and as soon as we go too high, we start to uncover some weird high end. I think it will work really nice with the other layer. Now let's add some depth. We could go with some normal standard reverb, you know, high size. You could also try something shorter and with lower room size. Something like Valhalla Room will work also really nice. To just blend the attack we have on those instruments. Now, if you don't have Valhalla Room, you could also take something like I Room Man. We have a ton of sampled rooms. I go with Valhalla Room. And now also I would like to add some RC20. We have an RC30 vintage paint preset. It will work definitely really nice if you don't have RC20. This noise and wobble will add a little bit more life into the sample. You could also definitely use something like Patcher. There's a humanizer preset, or there are a million ways how you could go around that as well. Now, we definitely cannot leave it like this. We need some movement, okay? One thing we could do is using some kind of LFO tool to make it breathe and add movement. We would make it work as fast as the notes go, right? So we would go with something like 1/4. Now with phase, you can change whether it kind of drags. Right, so when we increase the phase and go a little bit off, your head starts to bounce, right? This is normal. This is the same thing we will find in Tremolator. The feel is basically the same as the phase here. Another way you could try is, instead of dragging, make it Russian.
Not quite my tempo.
So it basically makes the volume go, instead of like that, where it's, you know, a little bit too quick, that makes the volume go up on the beat actually, right? So let's hear. right? Whatever you choose, let's go with tremolator and let's apply some mid-side EQ. We have one in our free patcher pack on our website, mixelite.com. And to clean it up, we'll just low cut from the sides. Very small difference if you're not listening on good headphones, but it actually does a ton. What we've got so far is this. Okay, cool. Now let's finally turn on the main layer. Let's actually just copy the previous mixer that we've done onto this guys, and let's just call it layer 2. Let's get rid of the room reverb, RC20, LFO as well. Turn off the mid-side for now. And also, I don't think we'll need too much of this decapitator, but with the EQ, we definitely want to go a little bit higher and broader, basically. Some nasty frequencies up in the trebles, we can slightly turn them down, and let's definitely apply some reverb. You can use any one. This time we'll go with a slightly higher size because we want now to add depth and space to this layer, since the first one works kind of like a helper to this actually layer 1, right? And this will be our layer 2. So nothing fancy. Let's not make it too long to not screw up the whole mix, since it's already crowded a lot. And let's turn down the mix. Always slow cut. Okay, now we have also this vocal ambience, and we can on it just apply this LFO that we've done earlier, right? In that case with tremolator, it will work kind of like this background layer for this whole thing. And now I'd like to add some high end also to this main layer because it's quite boring for now. So imagine when you'd like to make something darker, you apply halftime, right? So halftime will just pitch it down 1 octave and that's it. But what if we would like to make it brighter? We'll do the same thing but octave up, right? And to add some sparkle to it, let's add patcher and some pitch shifter to it. And now as you turn it up, it's kind of funny. Let's put the mix all the way up and add another dry signal and reverb to it. So it would be something like that. In a mix, it sounds pretty nice. You could try around or just use some creative effects like Crystallizer works perfectly if you want to add brightness and like this high-end richness to your element. So it's just like a granular delay basically. If you turn on the recycle, it will make it even richer in the high end. This is our main layer. Let's turn down the depth of the LFO. And let's definitely apply some EQ on this vocal layer. We don't need any of the low end, right? We just want the highs, since we have all the drums here, the 808, the other layer here. We also have this vocal over here. Right, it's just background vocal. We can definitely just cut out all the low end from it to put it more in the background, basically, right? The lower the frequencies, the more in your face they are, and also apply some reverb to wash it out to, again, put it more into the background. We can also pan it a little bit to one ear and also route it to our instrument bus, so it's also sidechained by the kick. And now we can level everything together. Definitely after all the processing, the instrument bass needs to go a lot higher in volume. On the layer 1, we can also introduce some side low cut as we did on the layer 1 to clean it up even more. But in that case, let's leave some of the lows here. On the instrument bus, you can always apply an EQ and cut out anything unnecessary, for example, everything under 100 Hz. And also cool trick to get rid of the resonances in your low mids where there's a ton of muddiness is use something like Soothe with just focus on the lower frequencies. To roughly hear how it will sound after some mastering, I love to apply OTT to mimic some multiband compression, about 10 to 15%. And this time we can go with soft clipping. So we just take the ceiling all the way up and turn down the saturation and increase the gain. We do it to now hear how it will sound with higher volume, and now we can also make better mixing decisions because, for example, we can hear that maybe the tremolator on the layers of the instrument is a little bit too low. And also I can now hear that the claps, for example, are a little bit too loud. This off snare is a little bit too loud. Now we have the vocals, but we've mixed them from start to finish in the previous videos, so you can watch this video next. This is how it sounds.
Walk around, all I feel is envy. Pockets getting mega, but my heart is still so empty. Feel like nobody around, going out to send me. I'm by myself in the field. Walk around, all I feel is envy. Pockets getting mega, but my heart is still so empty. Feel like nobody around, going out to send me. I'm by myself in the field, me and my semi. Walk around, all I feel is envy. Pockets getting mega, but my heart is still so empty. Feel like nobody around, going out to send me. I'm by myself in the field, me and my semi.
Of course, mixing is much more in-depth process. We have full mixing from start to finish courses on mixelite.com, together with a whole academy where you jump on weekly live coaching sessions and get unlimited feedback on your music up until your music doesn't sound as good as your favorite artists or better. So we mixed whole instrumental. Now watch this video to see how we mix those vocals from start to finish.